Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has stressed that new municipal and provincial laws aimed at eradicating red tape and obstacles are being drafted by a committee of experts. And the chairman of the Arab Interparliamentary Union, Brahim Boughali, has stressed in Cairo the need to protect Arab countries from repercussions of the rivalry between the great powers with the strengthening of their partnerships in order to preserve their interests. And as the UN General Assembly has called on the ICJ to issue an advisory opinion on the obligations to be fulfilled by the Israeli occupation as an occupied power, more Palestinians were killed in the continued Israeli attacks on Gaza. And those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has stressed that the meeting between the government and the walis or governors should be devoted to enhancing local development. President Tebboune recorded that he had set up a committee made up of experts to draft new municipal and provincial laws aimed at eradicating red tape and obstacles. The head of state also underlined that as of 2025, there will be a new system of management for local authorities and other related laws, including the fiscal law. He said that the state had managed to establish a system of governors based on development equality and firmness in managing public funds, adding that modern working systems should be continued to ensure local development. President Tebboune added that in recognition of the municipalities' role, new mechanisms were activated and old ones reactivated, including the mechanism promoting public-private partnership. Earlier, the President of the Republic had arrived at the Palace of the Nation in Algiers. You still listen to Radio Algeria International, and under the high patronage of the President of the Republic, this meeting is held under the theme Local Authorities, Locomotive of National Development. The two-day meeting will allow participants to discuss mechanisms that foster sustainable local development, challenges related to achieving food security and water security, challenges inherent in creating wealth and jobs, digitalization and modernization of local public services, as well as urban planning aimed at ensuring a quality living environment. And now the Minister of State in charge of Energy Mines and Renewable Energies, Mohamed Arqab, has chaired the General Assembly of the Sonalgas Group at its headquarters. The details with Mohamed Khatel.
The event was devoted to the examining and discussion of several topics, notably the evaluation of the group's development activities and the monitoring of major projects currently underway. The discussions also focused on management and supply issues. Meanwhile, the Energy Infrastructure Development Plan for Sonelgas subsidiaries for the period between 2025 and 2030 was analyzed, with a particular attention to projects aimed at strengthening energy production and transportation capacities. Other issues related to the activities of the group and its subsidiaries were also discussed. The meeting came as part of ongoing efforts to strengthen the country's energy security and promote sustainable development. In his speech, the minister renewed his full support for Sonelgas Group and its subsidiaries, emphasizing the importance of collaboration to improve the services offered to citizens and to strengthen the group's capacities to carry out these projects while meeting future challenges.
The President of the Arab Interparliamentary Union, Brahim Boughali, has stressed in Cairo the need to protect Arab countries from the repercussions of the rivalry between the great powers through the strengthening of their partnerships in order to preserve their interests. In his speech during the 36th session of the Executive Committee of the Arab Interparliamentary Union, Mr. Boughali called for strengthening Arab partnerships at the regional and international levels in order to preserve their interests and work towards the achievement of Arab economic complementarity as a strategic step guaranteeing autonomy and prosperity. Arab parliamentarians are called upon to relaunch joint action in different spaces, particularly with their counterparts and partners in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, with a view to raising awareness among parliamentarians around the world about the issues and causes of the region, notably the Palestinian cause. He also noted that the armed conflicts and socioeconomic crises facing the Arab region require require the development of clear strategies focused on strengthening Arab national security and activating Arab parliamentary cooperation mechanisms to build a future of social justice and achieve sustainable development. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and Mr. Boughali also spoke about the suffering of the Palestinian people, stressing that Arab countries should stand firmly against the attempts to impose a fait accompli in the Palestinian territories.
What our brothers are suffering from in the Gaza Strip amid indiscriminate attacks and a racist siege, and what our people in Al-Quds and the West Bank are going through due to racist and colonialist practices constitutes an open wound in the body of the Arab nation and a shame for humanity. This situation forces us all to ensure that the conclusions of our meetings as parliamentarians are at the level of the challenges that threaten our nation. The suffering of the Palestinian people must be an impetus to unify the ranks and achieve Arab integrity in different areas. Today, we have no choice but to remain firm against attempts to impose a fait accompli on the historic land of Palestine and to defend the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, notably the right to establish an independent state with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital.
And regarding the latest developments in Syria, Mr. Boughali expressed support for the sovereignty and unity of the country.
ومع التطورات الأخيرة التي تشهدها سوريا الشقيقة فإن علينا التأكيد.
Amid the latest developments in sisterly Syria, we would like to reiterate our full support for Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We welcome all political efforts led by the Syrians themselves for the sake of meeting the aspirations of the Syrian brotherly people. We affirm our firm rejection of the partition of Syria, and we condemn all kinds of attacks or violation against Syria's territorial sanctity. We stress the responsibility of the United Nations towards the Zionist entities' blatant violations of international law and the United Nations Charter, and highlight the necessity to ensure the full respect of the 1974 agreement on disengagement. We reiterate our call for the complete withdrawal of the Zionist entity from the Syrian Golan and from all the Arab-occupied lands for a just and global peace.
And at the end of his speech, the president of the Arab Interparliamentary Union urged the members of the nation to take advantage of bilateral and multilateral relations to develop the institutional infrastructure of the Union and promote the principles of governance and economic complementarity so that Arab parliamentarians can contribute in a concrete way to building a prosperous future for the peoples of the region. And to the Middle East now, as the UN General Assembly called on the International Court of Justice to issue an advisory note on the obligations to be fulfilled by Israel as an occupying power in the occupied Palestinian territories. More Palestinians were killed in the continued Israeli attacks on Gaza. Mohammed Khatil has the details.
At least 21 people were killed over the past 24 hours in airstrikes carried out by the Israeli army against the central area of Deir al-Balah and Rafah in the southern part of the territory. According to the news agency Wafa, the Israeli army ordered the evacuation of the Indonesian hospital in Beit Lahia, north of Gaza, forcing the wounded and patients to leave amid bombardments targeting the surrounding areas. Over 45,000 Palestinians have been killed since the Israeli army launched its offensive on the Gaza Strip, causing disastrous humanitarian situation. This came as the UN recalled in a notice released on its website that under the international humanitarian law, the occupying power must approve the relief of the needy people and facilitate and ensure adequate norms regarding the access to food, medical care, and public health. It was quoted by the news agency Wafa as saying that the UN General Assembly's request for the ICJ's advisory opinion regarding Israel's responsibility was taken on account of the critical humanitarian situation in Gaza. Both UNRWA and the World Health Organization, as well as several NGOs, have warned against the situation prevailing in the Gaza Strip, denouncing the restrictions imposed by the Israeli occupying authorities on the funneling of aid. In this connection, the UN Emergency Relief Coordinator, Tom Fletcher, affirmed that 97% of the authorization for aid delivery to Gaza's northern part had been turned down by the occupying authorities.
And still in the Middle East, the UN interim force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, has urged the Israeli occupation to speed up the withdrawal of its forces from Lebanon's southern part. It called for the deployment of the Lebanese forces in the area and urged all the parties to abstain from any action likely to compromise the fragile stability now prevailing. Under the ceasefire agreement reached nearly 1 month ago, the Israeli soldiers must pull out of the country's southern part within a 60-day period pending the deployment there of the Lebanese and UNIFIL forces. In this connection, Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati called on France and the United States to put pressure on the Israeli occupation to speed up the withdrawal of its army troops. During a tour of the southern region, he said that pressure must be put on the enemy to force it to put a halt to all its violations and allow the Lebanese army to fulfill its missions. He stressed that Lebanon was collaborating with the World Bank, the European Union, the Arab countries, and its international partners in order to create a fund destined to rebuild the country's southern part. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and France has unveiled a new government comprised of former ministers and senior civil servants that French Prime Minister François Bayrou hope can oversee the passage of a 2025 budget and avoid collapse that would deepen the country's crisis. Mohamed Khatel again.
Bayrou has struggled for almost 10 days now to put together a government as he looks to stave off potential no-confidence votes from the far right and left. He will need to begin work immediately on passing a 2025 budget bill after parliamentary pushback against the proposed legislation led to the toppling of his predecessor, former Prime Minister Michel Barnier. The inclusion of two former prime ministers indicates Macron's desire for a heavyweight government that will enjoy stability and not share the fate of Barnier. The priority for the 73-year-old Bayrou is to make sure his government can survive a no-confidence vote and that it passes a cost-cutting budget for 2025. The announcement came as France observed a day of mourning for the victims in the cyclone-hit Indian Ocean archipelago of Mayotte, France's poorest overseas territory.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, 2:42 minutes Algiers time. And a little over 2 weeks after a surge of violence in the Cité Soleil commune of Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, a UN report has concluded that more than 207 people were executed by a gang. Most of the victims were elderly people accused of practicing voodoo and causing the gang leader's child's illness. Other victims included those who tried to flee the area for fear of reprisals or were suspected of leaking information about the crimes to local media. The victims were taken to the gang stronghold where they were held captive and interrogated inside a so-called training center. They were then taken to a nearby execution site before being shot or killed with machetes. The gang attempted to erase all evidence by burning the bodies or dismembering them and then throwing them into the sea. The special representative of the Secretary General in Haiti, Maria Isabel Salvador, called on the Haitian justice system to conduct a thorough investigation into these horrific crimes and to arrest and punish their perpetrators as well as those who support them. She also called on Haitian authorities to quickly establish a specialized judicial unit to handle this type of crime. And you're still listening to Radio Algeria International. That's it for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a program devoted to the major national events that marked the year 2024. The program is compiled and presented by Mohamed Khatel.
"2024, which is drawing to an end in a few days, has been marked by crucial political steps and important decisions in Algeria, which contributed to the consolidation of the democratic base, the continued process of comprehensive reform of the legislative and institutional system, and the establishment of mechanisms for dialogue and consultation by involving citizens in the decision-making process. The most significant political event was the holding of an early presidential election on September 7, announced in March by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, who had then specified that the reasons for these decisions were purely technical and would have no impact on the course of the election.
والمنطلق الأساس تاع التغيير التوقيت هذا هو أن شهر ديسمبر ماهوش الشهر الحقيقي تاع الانتخابات. كنا نعرف أن في 2019 بعد استقالة الرئيس المرحوم رحمه الله كان فيه تولي سلطة من طرف رئيس مجلس الأمة مع تحديد الوقت تاع الانتخابات. مع الأسف الوقت ما سمحش الانتخابات، وقع فيه تمديد آخر إلى آخره. يعني 12 ديسمبر ماهوش التاريخ الرسمي تاعنا تاع الجزائر اللي متعودين فيه الانتخابات، والأسباب تقنية محضة ما تأثر لا على ضرورة الانتخابات ولا على كيفية سيرورة الانتخابات، والباقي كله فلسفة وتكهنات.
Indeed, the electoral process took place from the convening of the electorate on June 8 to the announcement of the final results by the Constitutional Court on September 14 in compliance with the principles of democratic, integrated and transparent political practice. The early election was held in a calm and serene climate after a clean electoral campaign marked by fair competition around programs and ideas, as well as by mutual respect among the three candidates for this national deadline, which ended with the renewal of confidence in Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune for a second presidential term. As part of his participatory democratic approach that he implemented during his first term, the President of the Republic announced, upon taking the oath on September 17, the launch of a national dialogue and intensive consultations with all the vital forces of the nation, including the youth, in order to establish a true democracy. He affirmed that the national dialogue, which will take place at the end of 2025 or the beginning of 2026, aims to set together the path forward after the revision of the laws relating to the organs of the modern state, such as the municipal and provincial codes.
وفي هذا اليوم الذي تبدأ فيه على بركة الله عهدة ثانية رئيسا للجمهورية الجزائرية الديمقراطية الشعبية، أن أتوجه من خلالكم إلى الشعب الجزائري العظيم صاحب السيادة بأخلص آيات الشكر وأسمى عبارات التقدير، وهو الذي حمى ويحمي بوعيه الوطني مسار ترسيخ شرعية المؤسسات وبناء دولة الحق والقانون من خلال الاستحقاقات الوطنية الدستورية.
The process of comprehensive reform of the country's legislative and institutional systems thus continued last year, particularly with the installation last October by the President of the Republic of the National Commission for the Revision of Municipal and Provincial Codes, chaired by the former Minister of the Interior, Mr. Dahoud Qabliya, in fulfillment of his commitment during the election campaign and when he was sworn in. The President of the Republic's commitment to strengthening dialogue and consultation mechanisms was made clear on many occasions this year, particularly through the meeting he held last May with the presidents of 27 political parties represented in the elected national and local assemblies. This meeting was an opportunity to listen to their points of view and proposals on several national issues. Among the principles of participatory democracy established by the President of the Republic, his commitment to holding direct meetings with citizens and representatives of civil society during his field visits to the various countries' provinces. In this context, and during the two visits he made to the provinces of Khenchela in May and Tizi Ouzou in July, he met with citizens and dignitaries as well as representatives of civil society and listened with great attention to their concerns and proposals concerning the support of the state's efforts to revive local development. And to implement further the direct contact with the citizens, the President of the Republic continued throughout 2024 his periodic meetings with representatives of the national media to answer journalist questions regarding national and international questions. To ensure the implementation of his decisions relating to the improvement of the living conditions of citizens, the President of the Republic undertook a reshuffle in the high-ranking positions to choose the best national skills and maintain those who have proven their effectiveness and efficiency. This orientation was reflected in the new government appointed by the President of the Republic, including changes to some sovereign and vital sectors in response to the profound economic and technological changes that Algeria is experiencing. The President of the Republic instructed the new government during the first Council of Ministers to focus all its efforts to ensure the well-being of citizens and ensure that their needs are met. The President of the Republic renewed his confidence in certain members of the government staff, particularly in the sovereign ministries, and proceeded to appoint new national skills. He also decided to appoint the Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, General Saeed Chingriha, Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, in addition to the creation of the position of Minister of State, assigned to the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Energy, Ahmed Attaf and Mohamed Arqab, respectively. In recognition of Algeria's approach to its African dimension, based on a multi-dimensional global vision, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was strengthened by a State Secretariat for African Affairs, in addition to the position of Secretary of State for the national community abroad, with a view to strengthening the handling of the concerns of the Algerian community living abroad. And in support of the dynamics of the national economy and the strategic options for diversifying state resources, the Ministry of Energy has been strengthened by a State Secretariat for Mines and a State Secretariat for Renewable Energies, in addition to the creation of a delegated ministry within the Ministry of Industry in charge of pharmaceutical production. In 1 year, the President of the Republic has conducted 2 partial reshuffles in the corps of governors or walis and delegated walis in April and November, respectively. He also ordered in June a reshuffle within the senior management of the General Directorate of National Security. Last March, the President of the Republic also undertook a reshuffle within the heads of diplomatic posts with the aim of strengthening the efficiency of the diplomatic apparatus, improving its performance in the face of current challenges, and ensuring better support for the national community abroad, which has benefited from several facilitation measures and exceptional reductions for entry into the national territory by decision of the President of the Republic.